When the news about the Charlie Hebdo attack at the offices in Paris of a satirical cartoonist, when the news first broke, my first response was, of course, outrage. Because it is outrageous. It's outrageous that a non-violent person engaged in non-violent acts, not actively hurting anyone, stealing from anyone, or committing fraud, was attacked. And more than that 12 people were murdered, and I think more were injured. And my first response was, fuck this ideology, fuck the people who would perpetuate this. Obviously the people who did it are horrible criminals. But my first thought was that we need to condemn all the people who support this kind of thinking. Basically, Islam, Muslims. I was on Reddit when I saw the news. I went to a bunch of other posts and upvoted the hell out of pictures of Muhammad. Right? Let's make fun of him. If we're not allowed to make fun of him and people are going to attack for it, let's do it more. Let's unite against them. And I was doing that for a little while. I think my blood cooled down. And I started reading through a couple different comments, and there's a lot of ignorant shit as usual. And then I went over to r/Islam, which is just the Reddit community for Islam in general. A broad community. I'm sure it has a lot of different people in it. But I wanted to get a Muslim perspective. I didn't, everything I'm reading is just your typical Reddit stuff. It's whatever hits front page, which is just sort of mainstream North America. I wanted to know how Muslim people felt. I needed to know, did they condemn it? Were they for it? Were they, was maybe all the Muslim population saying this is great? I didn't know. And I don't trust regular news sources because they're just going to give me polarized junk. So I went there, and what I saw was almost overwhelmingly people condemning it. And there's a few posts which I had already sort of suspected in my head would happen, and that sort of hit me, of people just sadness going, it seems selfish, but of them going, what am I going to have to go through now? What am I going to have to experience as a result of this? And that, that just hit me on an emotional level. Nothing clicked yet. But then I followed up and I found this link, which I'll post in the comment section of the video. And I don't know all the sources for this. I have yet to follow them all up, but basically it talks about Al-Qaeda recruitment techniques. And as soon as he brought that up, it immediately clicked and I started to understand. He talks about, and I'll post more links from the US Department of Justice and a couple other places that talk about recruitment techniques. But he talks about, I'll just quote here, Al-Qaeda in Mesopotamia, then led by Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, deployed this sort of polarization strategy successfully in Iraq, constantly attacking Shiites and their holy symbols and provoking the ethnic cleansing of 1 million Sunnis from Baghdad. The polarization proceeded with the help of various incarnations of basically the ISIS, which descends from Al-Qaeda in Mesopotamia, and in the end, the brutal and genocidal strategy worked, such that Daesh, the IS, was able to encompass all of Sunni Arab Iraq, which had suffered so many Shiite reprisals that they sought the umbrella of the very group they had deliberately and systematically provoked, the Shiites, that had deliberately done that. So there's a history of Al-Qaeda doing this. It's happening currently in many places and we openly talk about it. There's a history of this kind of thing happening with totalitarian, with violent, with sociopathic people and groups throughout history. In this article itself, and I've heard some of the history of the past as well, talking about Stalinist Russia, often doing the same things. About Germany doing the same things. Some people call it a false flag, other things. But the essence of what you do is if you have a population of people that you want to recruit into your cause. So Al-Qaeda wants control. Or a group wants control, and they use Al-Qaeda. They use whatever name they want. They want control of a population. They want control of a geographic area with oil, with resources, with whatever political power, whatever it is. But the population doesn't care, especially because in this day and age, I mean, especially in somewhere like France, life is easy. We have the internet. We have, even with an economic depression, we have access to so many things, and young Muslims, they see tolerance around them. Not all the time, but there's good people around them, and they see non-Muslims who are good people, and I don't think that they really naturally want to become radical extremists. So if you need to recruit, and this is your base of support for recruiting, what do? Well, you can't just give them harder rhetoric. You can't tell somebody who lives a decent life with Muslim and non-Muslim alike and just go, you should be out suicide bombing people for your faith. The guy kind of goes, well, whatever, fuck you. The way you do it is something like this. And I wouldn't be surprised if this information comes out through non-mainstream news channels sooner or later, once more of it breaks. But you do something like attack the Charlie Hebdo offices. Think of how perfect that is. Now, if you attack a random subway cart or a random thing, it has an effect. But think if you attack something that is specifically targeting Muslims. Okay, Muslims are already probably very uncomfortable with this. It's not okay to make fun of Muhammad in their religion. So they're already uncomfortable with this. But 99.99999% of them aren't doing anything violent or wrong about it. They're just unhappy about it. They would rather it didn't happen. They might petition against it. They might talk about it. They might explain to people why it's not okay to do that. Okay, and those are all awesome and totally valid responses to your uncomfortableness with something. So instead what they do, what the Al-Qaeda does, is get their 2 guys, 3 guys, whatever, to go in there, murder the cartoonists, and then the public response is exactly what my first response was to go and go, fuck Islam. Let's condemn these people. Let's make fun of them. They're shit. They're horrible. I can't believe they would do this. And then to attack them, and then what's the next response? And don't think that this is crazy conspiracy theory stuff. This is very normal tactics. This is exactly the kind of thing that militaries do. This is exactly the kind of thing that extreme political parties have done throughout history. There's lots of evidence in history about it. The next step that happens, the Muslim population gets assaulted regularly. Not just by political powers, but by regular people, because they're getting this constant feed of shit, of seeing how shitty, an extremist can be. So they see a guy with a turban on the bus and they yell at him, they make fun of him, they attack him. I'll post another link that was a guy on r/Islam that I saw today posting about how his mother was assaulted on a bus. I'm assuming she was wearing her religious garb. And she's assaulted on the bus. So now think. Now that you've got on your high horse and you've condemned Muslims for being evil, for bombing people, for drawing Muhammad, now that you've assaulted a random person, now that you've made random Muslims feel like shit, do they feel like they're a part of your community anymore? Do they feel like they owe allegiance to you? Like they care about you? Like they would stand for you and with you against bad people, against Al-Qaeda? Or do you think that this is how you grow new Al-Qaeda members? You convince the Western population to hate Muslims, to treat them poorly, to attack them and to incite rage in them, and make them feel alienated. Look, you don't attack the neighbor that you know and love. I don't care what my neighbor's religious views are. If I help him do his gardening, he's never going to bomb my house. If I look after his dog while he's gone for a couple days, that guy's just never going to come and try and murder me or murder my friends. It's just one of those facts of life. This message is for all the Muslims out there. I want to extend my sympathy because I understand that you are a part of a community that's probably your entire life. And even if you see things that are on the fringes of that community that you don't like, that doesn't mean you're going to abandon your whole community, and I understand that. And you have your faith, you have your religion. I don't personally agree with it or understand it, but it doesn't matter. I think it's okay that you have it, and I think it's great for you to be able to speak your mind about it. To every non-Muslim out there, I want to tell you that your best defense against terrorists is making friends. It's getting me kind of emotional, but you need to make friends with your neighbors. You need to make friends with your Muslim neighbors. You need to help them carry their groceries. You need to talk to them about how they feel. Ask them how they feel in light of this. Open up a dialogue. Allow them to feel sympathy for you. Allow them to understand how much you care about free speech without attacking them for it. And listen to them. Allow them explain to you how much it hurts to see something they love made fun of. You don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Because when you have a neighbor that you listen to, that neighbor will never shoot up a building you know. They'll never blow up a building you know. They'll never hijack a plane. Someone who you listen to and show love and respect to will never do that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.